Billy Richmond is the most athletic player in college basketball. Let's lock in and find out why.
You are Locked On NBA Draft with no ceilings. Your daily podcast on the future stars of the NBA. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On NBA Draft with no ceilings. Thanks as always for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if that bet hits, you'll win $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. If you're interested, head to FanDuel.com to get started today. Welcome back again. As always, my name is Albert Ghim, and I'm joined by my co-host, PhD in the pick and roll and pepperoni pizza. We have Corey Tulaba. Corey, we're back. And not only are we back, but college basketball is back, which is the most important headline and most important thing for us to be talking about. And we're finally getting some tape of these guys playing in real games and not in random exhibitions, but real games. And so, Corey, if you can, how are you doing? And also, I'm kind of hitting you with a curveball here that you weren't expecting, but if you can, in like maybe a sentence or two, who was the most impressive freshman that you saw on opening night?
Oh, man. Koa Pete.
Okay.
Monster. Do it all.
Yep.
Physical, athletic, skilled.
Yep.
And I'm doing amazing because college basketball is back. I mean, it's an exciting time. Like these are, we had the exhibitions. We talked about the exhibitions a lot, which is cool. And I think, we had a couple of pretty good matchups. So it was good to see, but man, nothing like games that count. And I mean, for most of these schools, they don't have like crazy schedules early on. They're not playing anybody of consequence, but Arizona, Florida is a hell of a start. That was a real deal matchup. Bunch of prospects that we like in that grouping. A lot of prospects that we've covered on this podcast in that grouping. And it was cool to see it in a new context with these freshmen wearing their college jersey and actually, adding to a sample that we can use going forward.
Yeah. And Corey, I think what you said before is really important. We didn't even plan it, but we just ended up covering a lot of the guys that were in that game, as you mentioned. And I was like, oh, this is kind of fun for us, where we did like the preseason scout, and now we're going to get to see a bunch of them all at once in the same game playing against each other. I thought that was really, really, really interesting. But Corey, along the lines of what you're saying with college basketball being back, we've got a prospect today that we're going to be breaking down that I think both of us are really excited about. We haven't talked about him off air at all, but you kind of just shot it in a text where like, hey, should we cover Billy Richmond? And I was like, absolutely, I'm down. I'm really excited for this one. And so, Corey, today we're talking about Billy Richmond from Arkansas. And so if you can, Corey, give us the essentials on Billy Richmond.
Okay, Billy Richmond, Arkansas sophomore wing. He is listed at 6'6", 205 pounds on the Arkansas website. He will be 20.2 years old on draft night. So, we covered Braden Burries last week. Braden Burries as a freshman is going to be about 6 months older than Billy Richmond on draft night. So good age for Richmond there. Last season, as a freshman in 36 games, 17.5 minutes per game, Richmond averaged 5.7 points, 3 rebounds, 1.4 assists, half steal, 0.4 blocks, 52.3, 12.5, 73.2 shooting splits, 52.9 effective field goal, 56.4 true shooting. I think he attempted 16 threes all year, hit 2 of them. So clear area of improvement, but there's so much to like you mentioned in the cold open, athletic freak. Mr. Richmond. And I think that while those numbers are nothing to get your juices flowing, every time you watch this kid on the floor, there's something infectious about it. And you just happen to like glance at him and notice him in really interesting ways. So while the stats may not intrigue you, turn on the film, see what he does there, and he's going to catch your eye. And I think you would be a fan of the way this guy plays, because if you like basketball, it's hard not to be.
Corey, I think the point that you're making about the stats is really important. this is like a random personal thing, but I actually met with the vice president of customer service at my company today. And something that she was mentioning, she was talking about how, data, right? And how as she took over, she's new to the company. She just did a analytical breakdown of data in terms of like how our customer service department was doing. And then something really important that she brought up was that as important as that data analysis was for them, they realized that that report and that breakdown that they did only told really about like 33% of the full story. And they learned so much about their team after interacting with them in person, talking to them, seeing how they were reacting to customers, blah, blah, blah. The reason why I'm kind of sharing this right now with you and our listeners is that Billy Richmond is exactly that, where if you look at the numbers, this really isn't enticing at all. 5.7 points per game, right?
Yeah.
Three rebounds per game. The shooting line it is what it is. But when you turn on the tape and you watch the actual player and how he functions on the court, and you mentioned how he's infectious, Corey, I think part of that, and with the cold open being that he's the most athletic player in college basketball, there is something that's very different about how he functions on the court. And it really does catch your eye. And when you watch him play basketball, you walk away going, oh, this guy is different. There's something distinctly just very distinct to him, right?
Yeah.
That you really can't always put into words, or more specifically stats here. And so, Corey, I think as we get into the breakdown of his offense, there are going to be things that we're going to talk about here that we're definitely going to be projecting. These
Mhm.
things are not rock solid right now, nor has he proved it even on the college level yet. However, we're projecting these things, and that's why we're very intrigued with him. And there is such a strong foundation that he's building upon. And so, Corey, if you can, give us your initial kind of takeaways with Billy Richmond's offense.
Yeah, I mean, first thing that comes to mind, and it's motor, and that's as you're talking about this data, the raw stats, nothing to write home about. There are some interesting advanced stats that he does have, but this is the quantitative versus qualitative kind of debate within scouting, and there are stats, I guess, that you can say can describe motor, offensive rebounding, maybe stocks, stuff like that. But this kid's motor is always hot, and I think that like you don't need to look at any of those numbers to just be like he's kids everywhere and anywhere all at one time. And that's what I really love about him because he's a low usage player. He sub 20, it was 18% usage last year as a freshman, and Arkansas always, these Cal teams are going to have a bunch of dudes, right? Like, and guys need to learn how to fit in next to ball dominant guys. It's going to be the same story this year.
Right.
DJ Wagner's still there. A Cuff is there. Malik Thomas, like Carter Knox. I mean, murderer's row of guys who can do something with the ball. And I think Billy Richmond has a little bit, he's not an ISO creator kind of guy, but he's also got capable ball skills in transition, grab and go. I love this kid in transition. Whether he's grabbing a rebound or he's playing the passing lanes or he's filling the wings and he's exploding up for an alley-oop dunk or, like I just think that like the way how hard he plays, that motor, it leads to good things on the offensive end because even when he's off the ball, he's finding little gaps in the defense to cut. And he's got this like electric first step. And, he uses it to like explode to the rim, really quick twitch actions off 45 cuts or like grabbing, rip and goes from the slot, like, and one step and, he's at the rim. It's what it feels like. He's like the Flash there. So offensively, I think it starts with like the motor and the athletic gifts.
Yeah, Corey, something that I wrote in my notes with him offensively, I put broken play merchant.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is like, if there's a broken play, watch out because Billy Richmond will be involved. And then more importantly, he may leverage that into an absolutely diabolical slam dunk where he's either putting someone on a poster or coming damn near close to ripping the rim off the basket, I think is something with him. So that's part of his game, right? And I think also speaks to what you're talking about, Corey, where he's generally involved in chaos, but also he looks for chaos because he's that type of player, right? He plays so hard all the time. And he has this ethos where he's trying to make something happen, right? Even if he doesn't have the ball in his hands. And to your point, Corey, something that I wrote here in my notes is that like, he may not have a bright future when it comes to like on ball stuff, but then also like I don't think he has two left hands either. Like I thought he was pretty good at handling the ball. There are a couple flashes here and there where he's creating for himself, and there's nothing very advanced or nothing that you'd be like, putting in your scouting report being really worried about him like breaking down your defense and like going crazy. But still, I think it's important, right? It's important that he does have some ability to handle the ball. Now, the real question, well, actually, let me pause the question first because I think both of us know what that question is. But another thing that I wanted to kind of piggyback off of what you said, so aggressive when he's getting downhill. He could do two things too, Corey. He can play through contact at times, but also elevate through contact, which I think is a different thing where he's receiving the contact well, but also he's so athletic that he can receive the contact and then still ascend above it. Like that type of athleticism and power at times. And another thing that I liked about him when he got downhill with the ball in his hands is that he can get pretty fancy with the footwork.
He does like good footwork.
Right. And you talk about like the side to side agility, Corey. And like we see that with some of the Euro steps he's doing, the rip throughs. Like there's this like really, I wouldn't go so far to say that it's nuanced, but it is different. And it does kind of add like a different element to his ability getting downhill where he's not just going straight line drive downhill, but he can mix things up and throw the defense off with his footwork.
Yeah, he's good in tight spaces.
Correct. Exactly. So yeah, that's why you're the best. I was trying to elaborate that in 900 words, and then you're like, boom. That's exactly what I meant, though, Corey. Absolutely, he's so good at that. And now the question is, and I think you're the perfect person to answer this question because you are a shot doctor. Everyone's going to be like, well, is this guy going to shoot it? Right. And I think for me, I'm like, and I think, Corey, we both have this, maybe we call it an illness or an ailment. We just believe in lefty shooters a lot. And it's something that we're trying to work through. We're, taking classes. I don't know. But Corey, if you can speak to what you think is a realistic outlook, like let's not do the whole betting thing, but let's like, if you can break down for our listeners and for me, please, where you feel like the areas of growth are and where you feel like he's eventually actually going to end up in terms of his shooting outlook.
Yeah. So it's a little interesting because I think functionally you look at it and you're like, okay, that's not busted. Like it doesn't look hideous. It's not like a Sean Marion, Amen Thompson form. Sean Marion, he had great touch and he was a good shooter. Amen, not as much, but there are some indicators that make you go, okay, like I can project some kind of growth here. For one, he knocked down 73.2% of his free throws, which is not a good number, I think, for a wing, but it's also not disqualifying. Yeah. But he also knocked down 38.2% of his long twos per Bart Torvik, which I think is pretty decent. And he's pretty comfortable getting to the mid-range and shooting from there. Like that's his shot. And he shoots off balance. He gets a ton of elevation. And I think that's part of where his issue could be in translating it out to the 3-point line, because the mid-range shot clearly is a shot he's more comfortable with. And when you're somebody who shoots with so much elevation from that range, you're shooting almost a different shot from three because you can't. Most shooters, I would say every shooter, most shooters can't replicate that kind of elevation on a 3-point shot. And I think he's one of them. And he doesn't get as much elevation. It's not to say that he shoots a set shot by any means, but it's not nearly the same as how he feels in the mid-range. And then there's also the part, I think the shot is a little palmy. And he doesn't have a ton of range. And he actually, I noticed not like a lot of his threes. He didn't take a lot of threes. He took 16 threes, but there were some attempts that he had taken where his foot was on the line because he's hugging the line instead of like giving himself distance. And, the NBA line is even further back than the college line. So that could present an issue. But for me, And, we felt this way with shooters before. He took 1.4 threes per 100 possessions last year. And he played 17 minutes. He is taking more of them already early on in the year. He took more in the exhibitions. He took 2 in 16 minutes in game 1. So for me, it's like, is he going to have the rope and the confidence to continue to trend in the direction where he is at least taking them? Right? And if he's going to shoot 30%, 32%, 33% from there, he was 0 for 2 in his first game, so he hasn't hit any yet. But is he going to continue shooting through misses? Because, that affects confidence. Confidence is big in shooting. And, we can break down all of the mechanical flaws or positives, but if the confidence isn't there, it doesn't really matter either way, because now you're thinking instead of just shooting the ball. That's going to be a big question for him moving forward, because it's early. It's easy to let it fly in exhibitions with games that don't matter. It's easy to let it fly in non-conference games where you're beating up on lesser opponents. But when you're playing Florida and you're on the court with 5 minutes left and the ball swings to you, are you going to shoot it when you're open, or are you going to wait for somebody to close out, hopefully, so you can attack? And those are the kind of things that I want to see as a shooter. I want to see him shoot in those situations and be confident to let that fly, because I think, that's the kind of thing you have to look for from a shooter. You need to make them respect you, and they're not going to respect you, especially in big moments, if you're not willing to let it fly. So those are the kind of things I'm going to look for, along with him just taking more and not even really truly caring about makes or misses.
No, absolutely, Corey. And I think, to your point, I do feel like opportunity is going to be there for him. Last year, he didn't start a single game. This year, he already started the first game, right? That alone speaks to him. He's going to have more opportunity. But I think this shooting conversation is such an important one, Corey, because I think both of us, we look at his long-term projection in terms of his offensive role being, he's going to be a supporting role player, right? He's not a guy that we're projecting to be a number 1 scoring option, or maybe not even a number 2, number 3 scoring option, depending on how things go, right? And if that's the case, and he's going to be kind of this kind of, secondary, tertiary, whatever type of offensive guy, then the outside shot is actually kind of important, because if you're going to have 2 other ball dominant guys on the floor, you're going to want people on the floor with them who are going to stretch the defense a little bit and not clog the paint and just, mess with the spacing overall. And so I think both of us, Corey, we're both excited about what he can do on the offensive end because of his athletic ability, how smooth he is, the type of aggression that he plays with going to the rim, and the swing
pretty
skill.
Decent passer.
Right. Actually, well, yeah, we didn't even talk about that, but yeah, some really nifty passes, some quick processing stuff too. That was impressive to watch. So no, yeah, I definitely think we're excited about him as an offensive player, but obviously the shooting will be a swing skill. Now, with that in mind, on the defensive end, he's also got some really good qualities that we're excited to talk about, and we'll get into those right after the break. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. And it keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when you make your first $5 bet and it hits. You're going to get those $300 in bonus bets. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Today, we're also, we're also sponsored by Rougiet. Let's be real. Making excuses doesn't solve anything. We've all heard them before. It's just stress. I'm tired, or it happens to everyone once in a while. But when it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little extra support, and that's where Rougiet comes in. Rougiet.com offers fast-acting, doctor-prescribed treatments for ED, designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. Rougiet makes it easy to get started. You just connect with a board-certified doctor, 100% online. So no awkward waiting rooms, no in-person appointments. You don't have to look around at the guy next to you and make a weird face. If prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly straight to your door. The process is fast, simple, and private, and it's all handled by real doctors. It's about confidence, connection, and getting back to the moments that matter. So visit rugiet.com/LockedOnNBA to get 15% off your first order. That's rugiet.com/LockedOnNBA. And don't forget to use our code LockedOnNBA so they know that we sent you. Rugiet, stop making excuses and start making moves. All right, Corey, we're going to start making moves here and get into Billy Richmond's defense. And I think this is the side of the ball where Corey, he makes some moves. This guy is he's not making excuses. He's not underperforming here. He is a staunch defensive player, a premier perimeter defender is kind of what I put here in my notes. But before I bury everything and get ahead of myself, Corey, if you can give us some of your initial thoughts on Billy Richmond's defense.
I mean, this kid is an absolute live wire defensively. It feels like he's everywhere. If you're looking for like the intriguing advanced stats, 1.7 steal, 2.6 blocks, right? So the stock stuff is great. I love how he moves laterally. I love his instincts in the passing lanes. He blows up DHOs. He gets slithery. I think he's strong and he's physical. Like he blocks shots, but he's also not just like sliding over from the weak side. He's actually like coming over and like making second effort plays and like blocking shots from behind. I think that the one area where I think he can improve is like he could be more disciplined on like closeouts instead of like flybys. When you're got somebody who plays with like a ton of energy, sometimes you get a little overzealous. You're trying to make the like sexy play instead of just staying solid. And then again, it's not that he's doing it every single time, but there are moments where I notice that. But he bodies up. He plays with his chest. He's willing to be physical. I think he can guard multiple positions. It looks like he's got good length. I looked for, any kind of record of a recorded wingspan. I couldn't find anything. But he's tough. He's physical. He looks pretty long. He's a freak athlete. He turns defense into offense, right? Like you'll see the pick six stuff in the passing lanes where he goes and flushes. He had 17 dunks last year in like his limited minutes. And there were, some of those were turning defense into offense and getting out in transition. So he is going to create like efficient offense out of the defense. And he plays so hard. When you have those kind of physical tools, but then you also play hard, it's like you can have some special moments. And he's a guy that I think could really be used. I mean, him and Carter Knox is the way that Carter Knox had finished last season. Like those guys on the wing, like Arkansas has some real guys. And, it's game one, but they were pressing, 94 feet. And that's a trend that we see within the league. And I think that Billy Richmond is like a guy who could do that. And I think that's valuable at his size to be able to move that way and guard that way. And, he doesn't remind me of this guy as a player, like completely, which is why I'm going to say him now instead of like saving him for our comm section. But there's like a lot of like the way that Aaron Naismith is valuable defensively in Billy Richmond. So I think he's somebody that NBA teams can feel really confident in, that he could make an impact on that side of the ball.
No, absolutely, Corey. And I didn't even realize we got this late into the pod, so I'll try to keep it short here. But in my notes, I second everything that you said. Just a couple of things that I wanted to throw in here that I thought were important to me. Really was just willing to get his hands dirty and make the hustle plays, like a guy who's ready to kind of throw his body around and get on the deck and all that stuff. Obviously, the defensive playmaking with him is really great. Big blocks in the passing lanes, whatever, really good stuff. Thought he navigated screens really well. And I like that. You mentioned how he gets skinny and all that stuff. Just overall a lot to like. I felt like he gambled a little bit.
Yeah, totally.
But That's part of the game. And especially if like you have that ability and those types of instincts, sometimes you're going to bite and you're going to miss, and then it is what it is. But overall, really fun defensive prospect. I wish we could have been longer. I managed our time wrong today. I'm sorry about that. But I think the main point that Corey and I are trying to make is that he's going to be a premier perimeter defender in college basketball this season. And so if you're interested in that, you should definitely be watching Billy Richmond play defense. But after this break, we're going to get into some comps because we think he's a very interesting player on both ends. And there are some NBA guys that remind us a lot about him. All right, guys, let's be real. No one starts a business for the joy of calculating tax withholdings or managing payroll spreadsheets. That's where Gusto comes in to take the stress out of payrolls, benefits, and HR so you can focus on running your business and supporting your team. Gusto is the all-in-one remote-friendly payroll and HR platform that makes managing your team simple, transparent, and fast. Whether you're hiring, onboarding, or paying employees, Gusto helps you do it all from one place without the hassle or hidden fees. Unlimited payroll runs for one monthly price, which means no surprise charges at the end of the month. Gusto's automated tools like offer letters, onboarding materials, and direct deposits save you hours per week. So try Gusto today at gusto.com/lockedonnba and get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's right, 3 months of free payroll at gusto.com/lockedonnba. One more time, that's gusto.com/lockedonnba. All right, Corey, we are back and we're doing comps, and we're doing with the type of player that Billy Richmond is, the type of athletic freak that he is. I think we're going to find some similarities in the comps that we have for him. But Corey, if you can go for share with us some of your comps.
Okay. So for like a lower end comp, I had Rondé Hollis Jefferson, which, this is a guy who played in the league, like more than a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And he just could never get the shot figured out. And ultimately, if you're not like super, super high feel with the shot, like you're erratic, like you'll get chances. And then eventually, that's it. More like middle of the road, not totally the same player, but like I could see him being used in this way. Maybe not, he's not as tall, but like Derek Jones Jr.
Okay.
Who has developed like the ability to hit spot up shots. So, that's more of like your median, like he figures that out. I think there's something there as just like a awesome role player who can play off a bunch of stars and make stuff happen and be versatile defensively and just be a freak athlete and use NBA spacing and pace to their advantage. And that's another guy who came to mind. And then lastly, and this is more of like a high end, like really develops his ball skills, really improves his shooting, guy who spent more time in college than Billy Richmond has so far, and is Herb Jones. Because I do think that Billy Richmond has some like pretty nice passing instincts. Like you mentioned, like the processing is pretty quick. He sees the weak side of the floor. Like he's not just like barreling into people on charges. He's spraying the ball out before, as the defense rotates. Herb Jones was a really good passer. He's got to develop his ball handling to get to like a new level, but there's a foundation for him to do that. And again, the shot's got to come around. Herb Jones has really, really, really worked on that and improved that. But maybe that is more of like some kind of higher end outcome that he can, aspire to.
Yeah. My favorite is when we show up with different comps. I always get sad when we have the same ones, but I have 3 that are a little bit different from yours, Corey.
Okay.
Okay, so my low end comp is just because of like the athleticism, how they move. I think it'd be a miracle not a miracle, but it would be great if Billy Richmond ever got to this guy's level of shooting. But like a Gerald Green,
okay,
first that came to my mind. One of the best in-game dunkers.
I was in the house for at the Barclays Center for I think the alley windmill.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow, you saw that live. That's crazy. Yeah.
He was a crazy dunker.
I've never been more jealous of you in my life. That's insane. Against the Rockets. That was an unbelievable dunk.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's my like lower end comp. I have 2 high end comps, and they're actually like, I think if he gets to this level, I think it's a great outcome. Both guys played in the league a very long time. I don't think they ever made an all-star team. I might be wrong, but the first guy I'm going to name is Gerald Wallace, a guy
Correct.
who long career, a lot of intangibles, defense first, offensively, obviously he grew over time, but like early on in his career, like he needed like a long runway for him to really find his, offensive identity. Another guy, and I think this is Billy Richmond's like ceiling. Maybe I'm wrong. If he reaches it, I think it would be crazy. And this guy is not even as good of a defender, I think. But anyway, Corey Maggette. Just because of like when I think of Maggette and how physical he was getting downhill, and like he pretty much made a career out of just being physical, getting downhill to the
shooting
basket.
10 free throws a game for a non-superstar.
Right. So just like, okay, like if Billy Richmond just goes all in, and it's just like, I'm going to leverage my athleticism and I'm just going to get downhill a bunch and try to create offense that way. And then like slowly build up like the mid-range game. And he's already comfortable in the mid-range, right? So if that continues to grow and then he does a little bit of shooting from outside, like maybe his highest outcome becomes like a Corey Maggette type, right?
And Maggette couldn't, he wasn't really a 3-point shooter. He was like a mid-range. Remember when wings like that would be like, I'm going to get yoked up?
Yeah. It was a different time.
Yoked.
I'm trying to think of another good example, but I know exactly what you're talking about. But yeah, Corey, I just felt like this could
Alvin
be
Williams, not a wing, but remember that.
We had some big dudes. But anyway, Corey, I think those three guys plus your guys, right? Like I think Billy Richmond, what we're trying to allude to is that we think he's going to be a good NBA player. And I think he's got these baseline skill sets and abilities that we're just hoping he builds upon, and then he could become a very, very good NBA player potentially, right? But overall, skill set on both ends really high. And guys, as always, thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. We hope you guys enjoyed this one. We went a little long on the offense and a lot of ads, but we really enjoyed doing this pod with you guys. And we've got more coming this week. We got another guy that we're really excited about. So please lock in with us. My name's Albert. He's Corey. Thanks for rocking with us.